Okay folks, today we're going to fix a TORO lawnmower with a KOHLER engine. It's one of the new style TORO lawnmowers. The customer couldn't get it started this year even though it's only 1 year old. Let's take a look. So I expect a fuel delivery problem to be the case. First thing I'm going to do is empty the fuel tank. First thing you need to do when working on a lawnmower fuel system is drain the gas. I'm going to let the fuel tank sit out here in the sun for an hour and dry out, and then blow some compressed air in here and make sure that everything's out of there and it's good and dry. This is pretty much all the tools I'm going to use. Some needle nose pliers, 10mm socket with an extension, a toothbrush, a little bit of wire, and a specially made flat bladed screwdriver. There is a trick to removing this carburetor once you have the bolts off. Just watch what I do here to remove this back throttle linkage. You basically have to pull the carburetor out a bit, rotate the throttle, and it pulls right out. Remove the spring on there as well. It looks like to take off this auto choke linkage, the only way to get that linkage off, once you have all the other linkages removed in the fuel line, you have to remove the automatic choke mechanism on the other side over here by the muffler, and I'm going to use a 10mm to do that. I'll show you where I mean here. See, you can see one of the nuts there. There's one. And there's one on the other side, and it looks like you can get to them pretty easily with a 10mm socket. Just take these off with your fingers. Once you loosen them, they're coming off pretty easily. Okay, let's see what it looks like underneath that little doohickey. Hopefully there's not going to be any springs that jump out at me or anything crazy like that, and we'll find out. Nope. So, looks like you can just rotate that now to get it off the linkage. There you go. And that's what this looks like. Now that that linkage is removed, I can just pull the carburetor right out. Now that we have this carburetor off, we can take off the float bowl here. Look inside the float bowl, take it off carefully and see what we have inside. One little tap usually breaks that loose. And if you look closely, you can see there's some speckles of corrosion, ethanol fuel gone bad. Can you see it in there? So the idea is to clean out this carburetor, the inside of it, best we can, and I don't think it needs to be rebuilt. Probably just needs to be cleaned out real good. I'm going to take the float off, inspect the float valve, put some carburetor cleaner in there and brush it out, make sure everything's spotless. Also, I'm going to need to take out the main jet and nozzle. I have a special screwdriver to do that. See that? We have the nozzle and the main jet here. We're going to clean these off, poke out all the little orifices and holes, and make sure everything's spotless before we reassemble the carburetor. So just like all the other carburetors I clean, I'm going to use a variety of tools to make sure everything's clean. One of my favorite tools is to use copper wire here to poke out all of these holes and make sure that those passageways are flowing correctly. I'm also going to unplug this main jet. There we go. And I will clean that up, make sure there's no more corrosion in there that's going to plug it up in the future. Everything's clean, so we can go back together. I have the float valve on the float, put it in place, put the hinge pin in place, put the nozzle back in. The main, oh, by the way, the nozzle goes in this way. If you look at it, it goes in this way. Put in the main jet. Not too tight, because that is brass. It can break very easily. Everything is very clean and we are ready to go back together. The O-ring float bowl gasket stayed on the float bowl, so we'll just go ahead and install this. It doesn't really matter which way this goes, but normally it goes the opposite way of the spigot. So it'll be like that. Not too tight. We're good to go back on the lawnmower. We're going to put things back together just the reverse of how we took them off. So first I have this linkage, put it in place. That's the way it goes. The carburetor. Connect this to this. Install it. Just sets right on top. The automatic choke is powered by the heat of the muffler, believe it or not. When the engine is cold and things are back together the way they're supposed to be, the choke will always be on, because when the engine heats up, when the muffler heats up, it pulls that choke flap right there, it pulls it open, wide open for warm engine operation. And watch me put this linkage back on so you can see how that goes. Put the carburetor on. Rotate the throttle opening like that, and then you can bend this linkage just a little bit to connect it, push it down into place, and then you should be able to work it like that. Now all I need to do is connect the spring, and we are ready to go back together. Reinstall the fuel line. Nope, not that way. That way. All the linkages are working correctly.